The U.S. military says it's carrying out more attacks on Iran for the third consecutive night. Explosions have reportedly been heard in Keshem Island, Bushehr and Bandar Abbas. President Trump says the strikes are targeting Tehran's capabilities related to the Strait of Hormuz. Earlier, Trump announced a new U.S. blockade in the strait would take effect on Tuesday. The U.S. military said ships suspected of passing without authorization will be subject to interception, diversion and capture. Well, we have correspondents following developments in the United States, Iran and here in Qatar. First, though, to Mike Hanna at the White House. Mike, so just talk us through what more the U.S. military has been saying about these latest strikes and the targets that they were going after.
Well, CENTCOM Central Command said that it was carrying out strikes for the third successive night. Those strikes appear to still be underway. It says that the targets were facilities associated with Iran's attempts to keep control of the Strait of Hormuz. You're talking about drone facilities, you're talking about Coast Guard operations. These are all the targets that the CENTCOM at least says they were looking at. These are exactly the same targets that it has been carrying out attacks on since this current round of conflict began.
And meanwhile, Mike, President Trump says he's reimposing a naval blockade in the strait and charging a 20% tariff on cargo ships in the waterway. And all this as the price of oil is going up.
Yes, indeed. Well, that naval blockade is due to start in the course of tomorrow. It's very similar to the previous blockade. But what is different this time is the fact that President Trump says he's going to be getting tolls from vessels passing through that route. Now, this is the southern route, the northern route of the Strait of Hormuz, alongside the coast of Oman. Obviously, Oman does have control over part of that. In fact, some of that route goes through its territorial waters. But here President Trump is now saying he's going to take these tolls. This despite the fact that only recently his Secretary of State said that to take tolls for vehicles passing through international waterways amounted to contravention of international law. And there's a cost factor involved too. If President Trump does get his way and charges that 20%, a fully laden oil tanker carrying capacity barrels of oil, that's going to mean another $30 million costs in transport fees, which obviously will be put on the consumer globally. And of course, here in the United States, where consumers are already deeply disturbed by this ongoing war, seemingly without end.
All right, Mike Hanna, line for us at the White House. Mike, thank you. Let's bring in Tawhid Asadi. He's live in the Iranian capital. Tawhid, so talk us through what the Iranians are saying about the latest U.S. strikes and what Iran says it's hit in response.
Well, it has been yet another night of the continued airstrikes by the Americans in different cities across the Iranian southern coast. And speaking of the latest, we've got reports about explosions in two important islands of Keshem and Abu Musa, which are critically important, seeing their geostrategic role and the fact that they are in the vicinity of the Strait of Hormuz. Also, for the first time in the Keshem Island, we've got reports about explosions being heard. In addition to that, we've got Bandar Abbas in Hormuzgan province and two other provinces of Khuzestan and Bushehr, in which several cities, including Omani, Kangan, and Jam, are said to be targeted. These are the latest from the Iranian territories. Also, from the Iranian response, I can say that the army came out to say that a U.S. vessel has been targeted. Also, they were talking about attacks on U.S. military bases and assets in Kuwait, saying that a communication center as well as a Patriot system and other U.S. military assets in Kuwait have been targeted. And now the state TV, IRIB, is saying that Jordan, which hosts a U.S. military base there, that military base, according to the report that comes from IRIB, is said to be targeted. The message that we are receiving from the Iranian military is that they are going to continue their retaliatory strikes as long as the American attacks continue.
And Tawhid, Donald Trump says he's reimposing a naval blockade on the strait. How is that likely to affect Iran's economy, and how is Tehran likely to respond to that?
Well, from the day one, when they started to go through the trajectory of diplomacy, they were saying that the U.S. naval blockade, as well as the lifting of the sanctions, are among the key points of concern for the Iranians, seeing that the deteriorated economic situation was there, and they had to deal with that by one way or another. Also, we know that rhetorically speaking, Iran is talking about formulation of their responses. When it comes to practice, also, we know that they have tightened up their measures when it comes to Strait of Hormuz in particular. While the U.S. president was talking about authority, control over the strait, the Iranian side, in particular, Abbas Araghchi, the foreign minister of the country, came out to say that whoever provides safe and secure passage for vessels, for commercial vessels at the strait, is going to be responsible. And that is the Iranian side. Specifically, he said that the Iranian side should be compensated for that, and he said Iran has always been the guardian of the Strait of Hormuz. This is one important aspect. The other important aspect is the military rhetoric that we have been hearing, and that's, then again, we see another line of contradiction. While the U.S. president is talking about the diminished power of the Iranian military, on the other hand, the Iranian side is saying that it is on full preparation for continuing their retaliatory strikes in case of continuation of the American attacks.
Tawhid Asadi, live for us there in Tehran. Tawhid, thank you. Well, meanwhile, the United Arab Emirates says 2 national tankers have been hit by Iranian strikes. Al Jazeera's Mohammed Val is following developments for us here in Doha. Mo, so the UAE Defence Ministry is saying these 2 tankers were hit in Omani waters. What more are you hearing?
Yeah, that's right. There is a statement from the UAE Ministry of Defense giving some details about this attack, saying that Iran used 2 cruise missiles to hit those 2 tankers. One of them, both tankers, the Mombasa and the Bahia, caught fire because of those strikes, and an Indian crew member on one of them, on the Mombasa, was killed. 8 others were injured, 6 of them with serious injuries. They include 4 Indian crew members and 2 Ukrainians. The Ministry of Defense described it as a brazen attack and a violation of international law, and saying the United Arab Emirates has the right to defend its assets, and it's going to take the necessary measures to counter those actions by the Iranian side. We know that also in Bahrain, sirens have been sounded a while ago, but we don't have details about what happened there, or if there is any impact or an attack. But these are signs of another escalation, and the usual thing that we see, the usual action by the Iranians that we see after any American attacks on Iranian soil.
Mohammed Val here in Doha. Mohammed, thank you. Let's bring in Alex Vatanka. He's a senior fellow with the Middle East Institute and specializes in Middle East and regional security affairs. He joins us live from Washington, D.C. Alex, good to have you with us again. So the U.S. military has started these 3rd round of strikes against Iranian targets in the Strait. What impact is this likely to have on the risk of a significant escalation between both sides, Alex?
Yeah, I mean, good to be back with you. Look, I think, just listening to President Trump hours ago, it's not clear where he's going with this. We heard the letter that he sent off to the U.S. Congress telling them that, the ceasefire is effectively over. Is this a tactical maneuver on his part? Is he trying to get Tehran's attention? Does he really want to go back to a full-fledged war? He might want to do that, but the military signs, the logistical support that you need to have that ready to go, they're not necessarily there. So, it could well be that this is just an attempt by U.S. to sort of force Iran to essentially give to the United States what basically Donald Trump's bottom line is, which is an Iranian acceptance that the Strait of Hormuz is going to go back to where it was before the war was launched on Iran on the 28th of February. And the Iranians are very reluctant to do that. That's the bottom line. That's where we are right now. And in the middle of that, you can expect the sort of tit for tat and the escalation continue. But again, let's all remember, neither side really wants to go back to a full-fledged war. And that should give us hopefully some reassurance that maybe they will walk all the way to the brink and then walk away.
Yeah, and President Trump says he's reimposed the naval blockade on Iran's ports in the Strait. Is this likely to change anything in the regime's calculations about those claims over the waterway? Because Iran sees this as an issue of sovereignty and not necessarily a bargaining chip, right?
Yeah, that's Iran's position today, that it has a sovereign right to control the traffic. You know, when the MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding, was signed effectively on the 17th of June, the Iranians thought that had been achieved. That was not the American understanding of what the MOU was about. And so from get-go, when that MOU was signed, that clause about who controls the strait, you know, has been in dispute. And you've heard in the last few days open anger being expressed on the Iranian side about the Sultanate of Oman, that Oman essentially, if you believe in the narrative of some folks in Tehran, went against the MOU, went against Iran by agreeing to this southern corridor, effectively opening up the Strait of Hormuz outside of Iran's supervision. This is why we started seeing on the 7th of July the latest round of ships being attacked by Iran. It's so keen on having, at least symbolically, being accepted as the power that controls the maritime traffic in and out of the strait, because from their point of view, this is their most important leverage point, and they're very reluctant to give it up.
Yeah, and Trump's also announced he'll charge a 20% tariff on all cargo shipping passing through the waterway. I mean, Trump was against Iran charging a toll, and now he's doing the very same thing, ironically. What is Trump's thinking, Alex, behind this move, and can he even enforce this under international maritime law? That's the question.
Oh, this is a really interesting development. As you pointed out, you know, this is a surprise to all of us, because this is against sort of freedom of navigation, the exact principle the United States in many ways went to, well, certainly in the case of the opening of the Strait of Hormuz, went to war with Iran for. And now the U.S. is not only doing the same thing, but essentially asking for money to do the same thing. And the big difference is Iran is right there. It's a literal state, whereas the United States comes from around the world to extract taxes. Yeah, it doesn't look good. I think a lot of Americans, including legal scholars, are going to say this is not going to fly. Yes, we understand the appeal of extracting money from the rich Gulf countries, as Donald Trump just put it a few hours ago. But end of the day, this is not going to look good for the United States. And again, it might be just a tactical pressure that the American president is trying to bring on Iran. And once he's told about the real sort of, you know, pros and cons of pursuing this, he might just give up on the idea.
Alex Vatanka, Senior Fellow with the Middle East Institute. Alex, many thanks for your time.